Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. The Democratic Party and its high-level power brokers seem to be stepping up their efforts way earlier than I even thought to muddy the waters and potentially try and rig the election against any third-party candidate, including potentially Cornel West, if he wins the Green Party nomination. David Axelrod, very instrumental in electing Obama in 2008, now a CNN hack contributor, excuse me. He tweeted last week and now is on CNN huffing and puffing about Cornel West potentially posing a threat to President Biden's reelection. And he said something that I found very interesting if you read in between the lines. Let's take a listen.
A top party strategist is raising the alarm that Joe Biden's presidency may be at risk from a third party candidate. David Axelrod, former advisor to President Obama, joins me now. And David, as we watch, the chaos in the Republican field, right? Things try to settle there. You tweeted in 2016, the Green Party played an outsized role in tipping the election to Donald Trump. Now with Cornel West as their likely nominee, they could easily do it again. Risky business. David, your warning's getting a lot of attention. Do you think Biden recognizes how big of a problem Cornel West could be for him?
I have to assume that he does, but it isn't necessarily up to him. It's up to party leaders across the board, progressive leaders in particular, because the great threat from Cornel West on the Green Party line is that he'll attract some progressive voters on that line away from Biden. And look, Aaron, you look at some of the states last time that tipped the election, Arizona was won by 11,000 votes, Wisconsin by about 20,000 votes. Doesn't take much to tip an election. And so this should be a concern, as should the No Labels Party, which I think has a capacity to also hurt Biden. Biden's strategy relies on, don't judge me against the Almighty, judge me against, my opponent. Well, if you have a third alternative, though, there are people who may have reservations about Trump and Biden, but would vote for Biden, who are going to leap over to third-party options. So the third parties could be really problematical for him.
So in all of this, let me ask you about RFK Jr.
And then they get into RFK Jr. and Axelrod makes the accurate point by the data that a lot of his support comes from Republicans. But what I found very interesting about what he said, and again, I'm not trying to be dramatic or sensational, but you got to read in between the lines. And this is the Democratic Party. We know the fuckery that they engaged in 2016. Obviously, Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the DNC throwing their entire body on the scale to sabotage Bernie Sanders' campaign, which was the true crime that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks revealed. It wasn't necessarily anything to do with Chelsea Manning or, the lies over Julian Assange and WikiLeaks helping her to hack a password, which did not happen. They were upset that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks committed the crime of revealing through emails that Hillary Clinton and the DNC were in cahoots, sabotaging and rigging the campaign against Bernie. But something he said I found very interesting. He said it's not really up to Biden when it comes to the threat of a third party or Cornel West. It's up to party leaders across the board. Then he pointed out particularly progressive party leaders. Of course, David Axelrod's idea of progressive and mine and yours might be dramatically different. But what does he mean? What does he mean by it's up to party leaders across the board to react when it comes to the threat of a third party candidate? In fairness, obviously he's being covered as the, Green Party candidate. Cornel West has not won the nomination. That wouldn't happen until next year. If it has happened, sources I have indicated, Green Party officials want there to be a process and a, fair process for all candidates to run. But assuming Cornel West, based on his name recognition, obviously support he has, is the Green Party nominee, what does David Axelrod mean that it's up to party leaders to take the threat seriously? Him obviously pointing out that Biden only beat Trump by small margins in Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Well, if you look at what the Democratic Party did not so long ago, or was it last year, in North Carolina to sabotage the campaign of then Green Party nominee Matthew Hoh in the North Carolina Senate race. Maybe we'll get some ideas what he's talking about up to party leaders. If you remember, and we covered it, I believe, before anyone else, I interviewed Matthew Hoh several times, but the Democratic Party did everything humanly possible to sabotage the just getting on the ballot for Matthew Hoh. Let's take a trip down memory lane. This was North Carolina last year. North Carolina Green Party rejection sparks claims of unfair undermining by national Democrats. In this case, a court ruled and tossed him off the ballot originally. 2 years ago, the Green Party didn't receive 2% in either the North Carolina presidential or governor's race. That means it lost a place on the ballot. To get back in 2022, the Greens needed 13,865 signatures of registered voters. The party said it collected 22,500, and that local county election boards verified 15,953 of them. So Matthew Hoh and the Greens had more than enough to get on the ballot in North Carolina. But then when the North Carolina Board of Elections met last week, Executive Director Karen Brinson-Bell said there were problems. Quote, there are numerous pages with obvious signs of fraud or irregularity, she said. These included the same handwriting throughout and similar signatures. She said the problems with the signatures, quote, might not raise a question, but when you look at these cumulatively, we feel like there's a cloud over how many signatures are valid. The elections board later voted 3-2 along party lines not to certify the Green Party petition, likely keeping it off the 2022 ballot. Let me repeat. Might not raise a question, but cumulatively, there's a cloud. And then by a 3-2 vote, they basically tossed Matthew Hoh off the ballot. The decision could boost Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Sherry Beasley by giving progressive voters fewer choices. Gotta love democracy. But the board decision touched off accusations from the Green Party that national Democrats were undermining their efforts. A prominent Democratic law firm, the Elias Law Group, with ties to Hillary Clinton, by the way, and the Clintons, said the Green Party misled voters when getting them to sign their petition. Matthew Hoh, the Green Party's North Carolina U.S. Senate candidate, acknowledged there were small problems with the more than 22,000 signatures submitted. He said 95% were collected by Green Party volunteers. Quote, but 5% were gathered by contractors, Hoh said. And 2 of those people seem to have tried to run a scam and submit false signatures. That was around 200 signatures in question. He said leading up to Thursday's hearing, he said the state hadn't given the party any indication there was a larger concern. Quote, and none of it, as far as we were told, accounted to systemic fraud that we were up to no good. This is going to happen when you collect signatures. Someone will write Mickey Mouse and think it's funny. He added, quote, this idea that because there was this fraud, there could be more, and because there could be more, there needs to be more investigation. Hoh said it was Democrats who was misleading people. Quote, about 2 weeks ago, we started hearing from folks who signed a petition saying, hey, someone just contacted me asking to take my name off the petition. Hoh released a recording of a phone call between Tony Nedge, who is the co-chair of the state's Green Party, with someone who tried to get them to take their name off the petition. The caller said they were a member of the Green Party. Let's take a listen to that.
You're calling to confirm whether or not I signed a petition. Mass, who are you calling with? What organization? Oh, is this the Green Party?
Yes.
You're with the Green Party?
Yes, and we have you listed as wanting to get the candidates on the North Carolina ballot. Did you sign that petition?
So you were calling as a representative of the Green Party?
As a volunteer, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I did sign it.
Okay, and would you say you strongly support it or just somewhat support it?
I mean, I don't think I'd sign something unless I strongly support it.
Okay, well, thank you for confirming. Animal participation in elections is important if the Green Party is on the ballot. It will take votes away from Democrats, giving Republicans a huge advantage that will help them win North Carolina in 2022 and 2024. There's far too much at stake to let this happen. Are you interested in asking to have your name removed from this petition or leave it as is?
I'm confused. So if you're with the Green Party, why are you asking to remove? Are you at, I'm sorry?
Yes, I totally.
So this is what I mean when I have told people, listen, I'm all for running third party. This is not to say Dem enter is better than Dem exit, but I think there, in some cases, has been a naivete that third party candidates, if we just exit the Democratic primary and exit the Democratic field and run third party, that solves the problem of the rigging. If anything, the Democratic or Republican Party, if they think it benefits them in certain states, is going to try and rig it against third party candidates, whether it's a Green Party candidate or, in the case of Republicans, if they think the Libertarian candidate might peel off more votes for them. That includes fuckery like we just listened to. That includes robocalls to voters accusing the third party candidate, Green Party or Libertarian, of doing something untoward, of voter fraud, of impersonations. I've seen it all. I've seen in the Democratic primary, big law firms and establishment candidates try and knock off and get ballot signatures and signatures invalidated. I saw this in the case of Anthony Clark running in Illinois against Danny Davis. I've seen it for many candidates, and I've also seen it for third-party candidates. So this is not to say don't run third party or Cornel West shouldn't be running third party, but we need to drop the illusion that just running third party and escaping the rigged primary of the Democrats, that it removes the rigging by the Democratic or Republican Party. Also, you have to understand on ballot control, a lot of these cases are decided, as we saw originally with Matthew Ho in North Carolina, by partisan judges. Originally, Matthew Ho was removed from the ballot by a 3-2 vote along party lines, but then an appeals court reversed that, getting him back on the ballot. Obviously, he lost in the North Carolina Senate, but that was in North Carolina. What do you think is going to happen when the stakes are much bigger? When the entire Democratic Party's eyes are on Cornel West getting ballot access state to state, particularly the key states like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, et cetera, et cetera. You think they're not going to be trying to influence the courts? Do you think Democratic governors who are behind the scenes, a shadow power behind Board of Elections or courts making decisions, let's not pretend they're not, you think they're going to have no say? So again, it's not to say don't run third party, but we have to understand you're not magically entering a non-rigged process by running third party. And David Axelrod might have not explicitly said, yeah, it's up to party leaders now to get in there and rig it. But when he's saying it's up to party leaders across the board, particularly progressive leaders, he's not talking about to make the case to voters not to vote for Cornel West and vote for Joe Biden instead. I don't think that's what he's referring to. I don't think he's making the case for it's up to Biden to execute some executive actions that, if you've ever followed the American Prospect, who does great work, they have a whole executive action tracker, thorough stories and lists of executive actions Biden could have taken on day one, on jobs, on healthcare, on the climate crisis, on criminal justice. Go down the list. And I'll put this in the description of the American Prospect's great work. I don't think David Axelrod is talking about it's up to party leaders and Biden to neutralize Cornel West through executive action or bold policies that he can take now as president through executive action, or bold pledges that if you reelect me, I will pursue X, Y, and Z. And I am vowing now that the parliamentarian will not have a role. Even if she says we can't do it, we will do it. I don't think that's what he's talking about. Of course, Cornel West knows this. Of course, any other third-party candidate knows this. And of course, there is also a legal battle. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party, because they also try to rig it against third-party candidates that they think are going to peel votes away from them. They have an army of lawyers. They have an army of lawyers with the DNC, the RNC, political consultants. They can drown third-party candidates and third parties, the Green Party in this case, in lawsuits, in legal challenges to ballot access, try and get signatures tossed. independent candidates, third-party candidates, Green Party, what have you, they don't have that army of lawyers. They are largely reliant on small dollar donations. So this is going to be a fight. I promise you, the tactics we saw them do with Matthew Ho that were at first successful, but an appeals court reversed, they will be throwing the kitchen sink at, if it's Cornel West in the Green Party, even if they think he could peel off 0.5%, 0.5% of the vote in certain places, because 0.5% could be the difference in a place like Wisconsin, where Biden only beat Trump by 20,000 votes. Could be the difference in a place like Arizona, where if the number, I think, was 10,000 votes, Biden won by. So I'd love to know what you think David Axelrod means, but I think he means party leaders, start the process now. We got to get rid of these third-party candidates, or the threat, rather than actually giving voters a reason to vote for us.